Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining us. I've got Tom Szaky, CEO TerraCycle, with me. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me about TerraCycle, how it's got started, and how it's evolved.
Absolutely. So TerraCycle today is 15 years old as a business. You're talking to me from our headquarters in Trenton, New Jersey, though we do operate in 21 countries around the world, Canada, US, Mexico, Brazil, most of Western Europe, Japan, Korea, China, and Australia, and New Zealand. And the goal of TerraCycle is to be a for-profit, mission-driven business, and our mission is to eliminate the idea of waste. And we do that in three major business units. The first business unit focuses on asking the question, is that object, right, which could be a package or a product, recyclable? And if it isn't, we set up national platforms in all these countries to collect those materials and get them recycled. So it's everything from chewing gum recycling, which we just launched in our Mexico division a few weeks ago, all the way to dirty diaper recycling, which you'll see in Holland very soon, and so on and so forth.
All right.
Our second, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Please.
No, our second model is then about how do we integrate recycled material back into products. So we run today the world's largest supply chain on ocean plastic, for example, making things like the Head and Shoulders bottle and other such products. And we're launching a very new, exciting division, actually at the World Economic Forum coming up this January, which is all about moving from disposable to durable supply chains. And you'll hear more about that in a few months' time.
Okay, and I do want to know more about that, but you say that recycle the unrecyclable. What does that mean?
That's a great question. So, the key thing to think about is what is the garbage industry and how does it work, right? So, and we are, for full disclosure, in many countries around the world, we sold minority interests of TerraCycle to the world's largest garbage companies. So, for example, in Canada, Waste Connections, the largest hauler up there, bought 25% of our Canadian business. Suez, the biggest in the world, recently bought a third of our Western European business. If you think about the way these companies work, what they focus on is first seeing what are the materials in your garbage that they can mine out and make money at. And that's what we call recycling. It's another way to think about it. It's profitable waste streams, like aluminum cans. But everything else, from flexible food packaging to pens to cosmetics and hundreds of categories of waste, you could technically recycle, but it costs more to collect and process them than the results are worth. And that's where TerraCycle focuses. And the way we solve that economic gap is we find stakeholders like consumer product companies, retailers, cities, and so on and so forth, who fund that economic difference. And that's how things like cigarette recycling can be born, or dirty diaper recycling, or chip bag recycling, and many other examples.
Got it. What are the next steps for TerraCycle? Where do you see the company going, and what's your plan to get there?
Absolutely. So we've luckily been in a really, we've grown straight for 15 years since our beginning, but the past 3 years have been really astounding. So this year we'll end up doing close to about 32 million in revenue. The year before was 24, year before that was 19. So we're seeing some really nice upward growth. And to continue to catalyze that, really looking potentially down, the line when we get to maybe 60 or 80 million at an IPO or something along those lines, is two pieces. One is to continue growing the innovation and what makes TerraCycle unique, more unique waste streams and in more ways to do so. But the other is also to look at acquiring businesses. We acquired a company called AirCycle, which became TerraCycle Regulated Waste in November. It's a Chicago-based organization. And by infusing the way we think about garbage, the innovation, the way we look at communications, we've been able to really make that organization significantly more profitable and also set it up for growth. And we feel like a lot of $5 to $20 million size waste management companies could be great targets for us to look at. And to help really finance all this, we're now embarking on a Regulation A plus financing, which is basically crowdfunding for equity is a simple way to think about it, where we can now take capital from non-accredited investors. People can go to ownterracycle.com, the SEC filing is there and all that, and be able to invest without being accredited at a minimum investment of $700. And millions have come in through this process, which is wonderful because it's our consumers, people who care, who want to take a little gamble, but not necessarily put a $50,000 or $100,000 check down. And so with that capital, we can really leverage it and do more M&A and continue the growth that we're seeing, which has been quite amazing over the past few years.
That sounds brilliant, and I'd like to see if we can get a piece of that myself, because I know that the track record you've already built is really laid the path for this to go forward. Is there anything else you want to bring out about what's going on with TerraCycle?
Absolutely. So, we really think internally about, looking at waste, not, many times when you look at waste management companies, it's waste management, right? Even those words, which is about how do you manage the idea of waste. And we believe that the idea of waste is not a natural idea. If you go back really to the 1940s, 1930s, everything was durable. Things didn't really behave in the way they do today in a world where we are addicted to disposability and buy phenomenal quantities of disposable goods. And so we think the real solution here is to continue what we're doing, as I've discussed, but also bring out new platforms. And we're embarking on that in 4 or 5 months from now, launching a new platform which is all about moving from disposable to durable, trying to solve waste at the root, at the root cause, which is this idea of disposability. And just like our normal TerraCycle business models, we're working with major manufacturers, major retailers to try to work within them to bring about these solutions, while acknowledging that consumers, want cheap and convenient, and won't necessarily sacrifice a great deal for sustainability. They would prefer sustainability, but within the context of winning on price and convenience and function and so on.
Let me get in there. The disposable durability. Give me an example on that one. That one.
Yeah. So here's a good example. So today, if you buy, say, a bottle of milk at a supermarket, it probably comes in a carton, and you own that carton. It's your property as the consumer, but you only want to own it while it's full of milk. Afterward, it's a liability to you. You will have to go find a bin, in that case a garbage bin, or if it is locally recyclable, a recycling bin, and pay someone to go take it away. And why should you own something that you don't want to own in the long run? And it's sort of ironic that you as the consumer are going to own that milk carton the least amount compared to anyone else in the supply chain who owned it, compared to the carton maker, the manufacturer, the retailer, all owned it for a longer period of time. The consumer gets it for a really short period of time and doesn't want it at the end anyway. So it's about how do we go back to the milkman, which is how it used to be. Milk used to come in a delivery service in beautiful high-end bottles, but to do that in a way that matches the convenience and affordability that disposability brought. And those are the types of thinking that we're doing on where does the future of waste go. In the interim, we still have to think about how do we recycle the phenomenal amounts of garbage that are generated, and then integrate that waste back into consumer products. All three of these things have to work in parallel. Like, what is the future? Laying those seeds, but then doing everything we can to solve for the current reality.
I see. All right. Is there anything else that you want to bring out before we close on today?
Well, yeah, I do want to highlight that this idea, which is really new, it got brought out under the Jobs Act just a few years ago. This idea of regulation plus financing, I think, is really exciting. For any listener out there that has wanted to get involved in funding innovative, startup or growth companies, but isn't necessarily a wealthy individual and could be qualified as an accredited investor and doesn't necessarily want to put massive checks on the table. And for us, it's been a really exciting way to raise capital. Again, people can go to ownterracycle.com to learn more about it, download all the filings and everything. But it's something to think about. If you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to access capital, it's sort of Kickstarter for equity. Which is really, really cool, and accesses your potential consumer base. And if you're on the other side, an investor, it's a great way to get involved in investing in high growth or startups without having to take huge risk, which is not necessarily for everyone.
Now, I may have missed this earlier because I'm just trying to keep track of this fast-paced conversation that you're bringing to the table. How much gross are you trying to raise? Was the total raise?
Absolutely. So we're raising $25 million, which purchases 1/3 of TerraCycle US. So that's the overall capital need, and we're doing quite well bringing that in so far. And from there, the capital will be deployed to accelerate the organic growth we're already seeing. So over 2 years, we grew 50%. We think we can keep pushing that. But then also to look at acquiring garbage companies who, and especially in the focus of recycling, who we think by seeing the world the way we do and working under our principles can really see an increase in profit, but also start accelerating their growth.
Got it. All right, Tom, thanks so much for being a guest on the show. I'm going to do what I can to move this forward on my side. I really appreciate the content, let alone what you're doing to help the world.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. All right, thanks for watching CEO Money. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.